Today we are going to talk with USA NFL reporter Jori Epstein. She usually covers my team, the Dallas Cowboys, which is the team I root for when I'm not watching Baker Mayfield. But she was at the Cotton Bowl covering Clemson versus Notre Dame, and she was there to report on some huge news related to Dabo Swinney, Clemson, and failed drug tests. And we're going to talk to her about it after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Considering the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. So it's O-related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Now, let's talk with Jory about just what has happened at the Cotton Bowl. So, Jory, I met you at the opening final when you were actually writing high school features, and then all of a sudden you end up writing about the Dallas Cowboys, and then I see you tweeting news from the Cotton Bowl about Clemson players who have tested positive for a banned substance. You have been working, girl. What have you been up to?
You know, RJ, it's funny. I was just thinking about U.S. signing day last week because I'm looking, and all these players who we talked to at the opening are all of a sudden officially recruited to their colleges, and I'm like, no doubt RJ is all over this news. And then I went to check out your Twitter, and you were. Surprised. But yeah, so since I met you, I have left the Dallas Morning News, and I'm now a national NFL reporter for USA Today, based in Dallas, so a lot of Cowboys, but all of the teams. And when something else comes to Dallas, I work on that too. So yesterday I was at the AT&T Stadium for the Cowboys game, and this morning I was back here for Cotton Bowl availability. And this afternoon, Dabo Swinney gave us a little bit of breaking news.
Yeah, so like I saw your, because we follow each other on Twitter, and you are my go-to for Dallas Cowboys news because one, it's my team, and then, hey, I know her, I'm going to read her, and you're a kick-ass reporter. But I'm going to just preface this by saying, when you tweeted the news and I read it, what was off-putting to me, and what was funny to me is that they thought that Dabo was joking when he said they tested positive for something because they didn't really get it. So walk me through what exactly happened and why you think he decided to divulge the information then as opposed to, say, a presser or a press release, I should say, which is usually how that kind of information gets out.
It's a good question. So here we are. We're at AT&T Stadium. Notre Dame and Clemson arrived last night ahead of Saturday's college football playoff semifinal, the Cotton Bowl, here in North Texas. And today was the first press conference. And when Clemson came on this afternoon, Dabo Swinney had a couple players talk. They left, and he said, I just want to be transparent about this, and I'm going to give you some news, but let me explain the situation before I tell you who these players are, because I want this to be clear, and I don't want people giving their own narratives.
Oh, wow.
And so what happened was on Thursday, the NCAA sent 3 letters letting Dexter Lawrence, Clemson's standout defensive tackle, Zach Gila, who's their backup offensive lineman, and a freshman tight end named Braden Galloway know that they had tested positive during routine testing for the drug ostarine. So ostarine's not a well-known drug. Dabo said he'd never heard of it before, but now he's done quite the research on it the last few days. And the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency defines it as a selective androgen receptor modulator not legal for human use or consumption in any country. So what does that mean? Essentially, its effects are similar to other anabolic steroids. It's considered a performance-enhancing drug. No legal medicine or product in the U.S. has it. That being said, allegedly some companies will put it under a different name. Some supplements will include it, but it's an illegal substance, and though Clemson declined to give the exact number of what this measurement positive was, they said it was a trace, a sliver, a hairline's amount, and these 3 players currently are appealing their eligibility for Saturday's game. So they were at practice today in jerseys and helmets, but mostly on the sideline standing out. Clemson is proceeding as if it will not have these 3 players, which includes star defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence, and they're waiting for a secondary sample, what they call the B-test sample, to come back, and they anticipate those results on Wednesday or Thursday. But right now, it is looking like these players will not be eligible for the semifinal on Saturday.
Wow, I mean that's huge for a number of reasons. One, just this doesn't really affect college football in the way that we might think it affects other sports, right? If we're thinking about the Olympics, John Jones keeps it in the news with the UFC. But in college football, this hasn't really been an issue. I think it was always because the nutritionists on staff and so forth have always been very good at the big-time programs of saying what you can and can't do. And yet this was able to occur. And I get that nobody knows what this substance is, but I also wonder what they expect to find in the B sample. Like, in my experience, just reading about it, it usually just comes back positive, just like the last one.
Yeah, so I don't have a ton of experience, like you said, with this sampling because it's so rare that this happens. Although Dabo thought there were like 40 athletes who had tested positive for this drug throughout the last year, and that there have been others who have later been vindicated once they figured out that they either didn't know they were taking it or that it was some kind of confusion. Dabo's kind of like, I don't even know if it's there. I'm just taking their word for it that's there. Alonzo Trier, basketball for Arizona, a couple of years ago was suspended for the same drug, which I believe he said someone had put in his drink. He was unaware of it, and the NCAA ruled that because he was unaware, they weren't going to give him a long punishment for it, but he couldn't play until later in the season when the drug was out of his system. And there's a debate on what effects this drug would have, and also if it is a sliver of an amount, is that really going to affect what they can play? You asked also, why would Dabo come and tell us this today? One theory is Clemson is trying to show that this is random. These players didn't know what was going on. I mean, you've got a starter, you've got a backup, you've got a freshman, a tight end, a defensive tackle. It's not like three guys playing next to each other on the interior of a defensive line all tested positive for this drug. So it sounds like Clemson is trying to figure out what comes next, wait for these samples, and these players are seeking legal representation. But other than the B test samples, any other appeal would likely not be able to take place before Saturday's game. So this drug test sample, the secondary one, is their only hope of being active against Notre Dame on Saturday in the semifinal.
Did he say when they found out for sure that the players had tested positive?
The NCAA sent a letter on Thursday.
Oh, man,
and
okay.
then Dabo called them after to tell them. I had read somewhere that he called them last night, but I know that he received a letter on Thursday.
Because I was just thinking, it's Christmas Eve, right? And we're working because that's what we do, right? That's part of the gig. But I was wondering, the NCAA is not going to hear any appeals on Christmas Eve or Christmas. And then you have, 3 days before both the semifinals, and one in which Clemson was a lopsided favorite to win the game. Not so much the way that Alabama is against Oklahoma, but nobody expected them to lose this game. And I think it'd be fair to say folks don't expect them to lose this game now just because that defensive line is so great even without Dexter Lawrence. But more to the point of Dabo and him getting out in front of this, the cheater label is going to follow them around, if not this weekend, then into 2019 and so forth, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things Dabo is trying to clarify. He said one of the reasons I'm being so transparent is because I don't want to leave this up for speculation. This isn't a drugs you'd get off the street, although the anti-doping agency will tell you that the black market is where you find it. But what Dabo said is this isn't like street drugs. I've had players fail drug tests before, and this is a different thing. They thought this was a joke. So he wants to, like you said, get out in front of it. It is Christmas tomorrow, but the players will still be here practicing. So I don't think that would affect the processes, although I don't know where they do their testing. And, it's interesting. The NFL draft had tweeted after we had this news that off-strains typically used for muscle building, currently on the anti-doping agency prohibited list across the world and not approved for human use or consumption. But, again, how did this drug enter their system? Is it something they knew about? Is it something that if they knew that they were getting it, they knew the drug was in it? There are a lot of questions left, and I think that Dabo wanted this process to start of figuring out what comes next because it seems like it could impact this semifinal game, and they don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, and I guess that's where you have to leave it. Jory, thanks so much for taking the time. I know that you're swamped. I know that you're covering basically 4 teams now because you got the Cowboys, whoever they play, and now you got Notre Dame and Clemson, and I've just admired your work from afar. I hope to talk with you more. I mean, if at all possible. I know that you're working all the time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, RJ, and keep up all the great work you're doing. I'm sure that at the other semifinal game this weekend, Alabama and OU, all of your readers and watchers will get all the latest updates from you.
You're so kind. Thank you. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.